දවස් 30ක්ම unlimited Netflix බලන්න. Unlimited data pack එකක් මුළු පවුලටම unlimited fun එකක් අරගන්න. අදම active කරගන්න.
ලෙන්ගතුකම වැඩි කරගන්න ලව්ජු රුපියල් 50ට අඩු කළා.
මාමේ එන්න අපිට එකක් බොමු.
Tonight, under review, the new rapid detection antigen tests for COVID-19 possible come next week.
Expert team is now reviewing this test. We hope that these reports will be available by the end of this week.
Virus-free. Coronavirus infected mother delivers healthy baby. Relief measures. Grace period extended for 4% COVID-19 Renaissance facility. Fight to the so-called death. Trump vows to defend electoral integrity to the death as Biden breezes into the lead, inching closer to the White House. All that and much more coming up on First at 9, this Friday, the 6th of November, 2020.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9.
Nava Sunlight Sakura. Then Dikukal Pavatina Sakura Mal Suandin.
Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Dhammike Kanayaka. Now, US President Donald Trump's continued claims of mass Democrat-led election fraud to rob him of his second presidential term has created an increased sense of uncertainty over a peaceful transition. With signs of a Biden win on the cards as key decisive states are yet to release final results, Trump's refusal to accept defeat has galvanized his supporters to gather outside counting centers. Further, fears of violence were high after police in Philadelphia arrested an armed individual who allegedly was planning an attack on a counting center.
The wait for the final results of the 2020 US presidential elections has so far been one of the longest on record. As of this morning, former Vice President Joe Biden remains in the lead with 264 electoral votes and 50.5% of the votes counted, while President Donald Trump having gained only 214 with 47.8%. More results are expected to be released for the states of Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, Nevada and Alaska, where mail-in votes are still being counted. All signs currently point to a Joe Biden presidency for the next 4 years. However, hopes for a calm and peaceful transition of power look to be fraught with uncertainty and fear as President Trump continues to push his much flawed and disputed election fraud theory to his supporters.
If you count the legal votes, I easily win. If you count the illegal votes, they can try to steal the election from us. If you count the votes that came in late, we're looking at them very strongly. I've already decisively won many critical states, including massive victories in Florida, Iowa, Indiana, Ohio. We won these and many other victories despite historic election interference from big media, big money, and big tech. As everybody saw, we won by historic numbers. Likewise in Georgia, I won by a lot with a lead of over getting close to 300,000 votes on election night. And by the way, got whittled down, and now it's getting to be to a point where I'll go from winning by a lot to perhaps being even down a little bit. Our goal is to defend the integrity of the election. We'll not allow the corruption to steal such an important election, or any election for that matter. They're trying to rig an election, and we can't let that happen. The counting in Pennsylvania and other key states are all part of a corrupt Democrat machine.
Meanwhile, in the latest results from the state of Georgia, Biden has overtaken Trump by a slim majority. With 16 electoral votes on the line in the state, a win in this state will seal the deal for Biden, whereas for Trump it would deal a death blow to his chances of re-election. Trump desperately requires wins in the states of Georgia and Pennsylvania. The state of Georgia last voted Democrat back in 1992. Meanwhile, the president's eldest son, Donald Trump Jr., pushed the same narrative, telling a crowd of supporters gathered outside the Georgia Republican Party headquarters that his father would fight to the death for the presidency.
But I think the number one thing that Donald Trump can do in this election is fight each and every one of these battles to the death so that we get Full transparency in the process. And everyone on the Democrat side should welcome this unless they're actually cheating. Americans need to know that this is not a banana republic. If this was going on in another country, if this was going on in a third world country, they would be screaming to the high heavens. When it's happening right here in America, and not just in Georgia, but in all over the place, but primarily in Democrat cities with Democrat control, Democrat judges.
With the Trump camp having filed several court cases in key disputed states, analysts say that the short-term goal of the litigation is mainly to change the current narrative from a Biden win to election mismanagement or even fraud. With that, a Georgia judge summarily dismissed a Trump campaign lawsuit filed yesterday, where they claimed that ballots allegedly received after the 7 p.m. deadline were mixed in with legitimate ballots. In his ruling, Judge James F. Bass wrote that the court could find no evidence that the ballots referenced in the petition were actually received after the deadline had expired, thereby invalidating them. Further, Judge Cynthia Stevens of the Michigan Court of Claims also ruled yesterday against the Trump campaign challenge of how absentee ballots were counted. Judge Stevens ruled that the Trump campaign failed to adequately make its case and that it was too late to grant the remedy requested by the Trump campaign. Analysts say that the courts are typically unwilling to let plaintiffs ask for major changes for a process that's already underway. Meanwhile, the petition filed by the Trump camp before the U.S. Supreme Court on Pennsylvania's ballot deadline may be a more serious litigation challenge, as it challenges the validity of potentially several thousand votes cast but received by officials in the mail after the election. However, experts say that for this case to make a genuine difference, Pennsylvania would need to be the deciding state for the election, and that the margin of difference between Trump and Biden would need to be several tens of thousands of votes. In the meantime, President Trump's calls for vote counting to be stopped seems to be backfiring, as several Republican allies sought to distance themselves. Utah Senator Mitt Romney and other Republicans took to Twitter to condemn Trump's assault on the country's democratic process yesterday. Romney urged Trump to have faith in the democratic process, the Constitution, and in the American people, and reminded him that counting every vote is at the heart of democracy. In addition, former Republican Arizona Senator Jeff Flake tweeted that no Republican should be okay with the president's statements, adding that it was unacceptable. Meanwhile, outgoing Republican Texas U.S. Representative Will Hurd tweeted that it was dangerous and wrong for a sitting president to undermine the country's political process and question the legality of the voices of countless Americans. In the meantime, as a result of President Trump's continued rejection of the results so far, his supporters took up positions outside several counting centers yesterday. Further, police in Philadelphia announced today that they are investigating an alleged plot to attack the city's Pennsylvania Convention Center, where votes are in the process of being counted. After local police received a tip-off about a vehicle with armed individuals driving up from Virginia and planning to attack the convention center, one man was taken into custody along with a weapon.
Safeguard hand sanitizer. Navatama nishpadana pela neerogimat diviyakata.
Now, taking a look at the pandemic situation as Sri Lanka struggles with an increase in infections from the new COVID-19 strain. In the past 2 weeks alone, the country has reported 16 deaths, surpassing the number from the first wave. With that, the Government Medical Officers Association has once more urged the public to pay attention to health and safety in order to minimize any further rise in infections. Meanwhile, in what could be a small miracle, a healthy virus-free baby was born today to a COVID-19 infected mother.
35 days have passed since the COVID-19 outbreak at the Minuwangoda apparel factory, which is by far the biggest coronavirus cluster the country has ever seen, also leading to the worst spread within the island. The number of infections reported during these 35 days amounts to 9,096. 1,041 among them are employees of the Minuwangoda apparel factory, 1,007 are employees of the Paliagoda fish market, and the rest, a whopping 7,048, are associates of the infected people from these two clusters. From the infections confirmed in Minuwangoda and Paliagoda clusters, 3,200 persons have completely recovered. It is already scientifically proven that the present COVID-19 virus in circulation is in fact a different strand, which is more virulent than the one Sri Lanka contended with during the first wave. As such, it's not just the number of infections that are on the rise, but the deaths as well. Since the 3rd of October, when the first infection from the second wave was confirmed, Sri Lanka have lost 16 people to the virus. The level of severity of the new viral strain is made more apparent given that there was only 13 deaths across a span of almost 8 months prior to the present outbreak. Many who succumbed to the virus within the last month died at their residences, only testing positive for COVID-19 during their post-mortem. Almost all of the deceased had suffered from chronic diseases.
යම්කිසි කෙනෙක් නිදංගත රෝගවලින් පෙළෙනවා නම් ඒ වගේ කෙනෙකුට COVID-19 රෝගය ආසාදනය වුණාම මිය යාමට තියෙන සම්භාවිතාවය ඉතාමත්ම අධිකයි. COVID-19 රෝගය නිසා නිවස තුලදී මිය ගිය කිහිප දෙනෙක්ම විශේෂයෙන්ම කොළඹ මහනගර සභා සීමාව තුලදී අපි හඳුනාගත්තා. එයින් තේරුම් ගන්න ඕනේ අපි PCR පරීක්ෂණ කරන අතරතුර තවදුරටත් රෝගීන් සිටිනවා. ඔවුන් හඳුනා ගැනීමට අපිට අවශ්‍යයි. මහල් නිවාස වගේ ස්ථානවල ජීවත් වෙන අයට අපි උපදෙස් ලබා දෙන්නේ කිසිම විදියකින් අනිත් ගෙවල් වලට යෑම සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම නවත්තන්න ඕන, පුළුවන් තරම් සීමා කරන්න ඕන.
දැන් අපි මෙච්චර දවස් රෝගීන් ගැන කතා කර හිටියේ. ඉදිරි සතිය දෙක මාසෙ වෙනකොට දෙසැම්බර් මුල වෙනකොට අපිට මරණ ගාන ගැන වැඩියෙන් කතා කරන්න වෙන තත්ත්වයක් දැන් නිර්මාණය වෙමින් තියෙනවා. මේක ඉතාම භයානක තත්ත්වයක්. අපි කිව්වා මේ සමාජය තුලින් රෝගීන් හම්බ වෙන්න ගත්ත මොහොතකදී මේ තිබිච්ච චිත්‍රය සම්පූර්ණයෙන් උඩු යටිකුරු වෙනවා කියලා. දැන් අද ඒක සිද්ධ වෙමින් තියෙනවා. දවසට මරණ 5ක්. හෙට මේක මරණ 6ක් වෙයිද 10ක් වෙයිද නැත්නම් අනිත් පැත්තට අපිට මරණ ගන්න අඩු කරගන්න පුළුවන් වේද කියලා තීරණය කරන්න වෙන්නේ අපි මේ මොහොතේදී මේ මරණ ගැන හිතලා හරි තීරණ ගත්තොත්. 9 වෙනිදා මේ ඇඳිරි නීති ඉවත් කරනවා නම් අපි තීරණය කළ යුතු කාරණේ තමයි අපි අර රෝග ව්‍යාප්තිය පාලනය කළාද තියෙන්නේ. අපි අර කන්ටැක්ට්ස් ටික සේරම ට්‍රේස් කරලා ඉවරද? දැන් සමාජයට අර ඒ වටේදී ආපු වෙන් අවදානමක් නැද්ද? ඒ කන්ටැක්ට්ස් ටික ට්‍රේස් කරලා විතරක්මද එයාට PCR කරලා ලෙඩ්ඩු කවුද ලෙඩ්ඩු නොවන කවුද කියලා අපි තීරණය කරලා ඉවරද? රටේ ආර්ථිකය මේ සේරමත් එක්ක අපි තීරණය කරන්න ඕන වුණාට මේ සෞඛ්‍ය මූලික හරයන් ටික අපිට අමතක කරලා තීරණ ගන්න බැරි තත්ත්වයක් මේ වෙනකොට නිර්මාණය වෙලා තියෙනවා.
Meanwhile, 383 new infections were confirmed within the country yesterday. Majority of them were reported from the Colombo district with 168 cases. From the rest, 157 are reported from the Gampaha district, 24 from the Kalutara district, 6 from the district of Kegol, 5 from the district of Matara and 1 each from Batiklo and Kurunagala. The rest are 21 police officers. Meanwhile, a doctor at the Lady Ridgeway Children's Hospital in Colombo was also diagnosed with the virus yesterday. As a result, 2 of his associates were placed under quarantine. 20 children and 12 mothers there were diagnosed with the coronavirus before. In the meantime, with 49 employees of a private factory in the area of Keravalapitia in Vattala testing positive for COVID-19, the rest of the employees were referred for testing. Their results confirmed the infections of 57 more employees. Health authorities say that test results of more employees at the factory are yet to return. In Ragama, the officer in charge of the area police station was diagnosed with COVID-19. His diagnosis was confirmed following a PCR test performed when he arrived at the Ragama hospital seeking treatment for health complications. Accordingly, 10 of his associates were quarantined inside the police station. Health officials are yet to ascertain the origins of the infection. A police officer attached to the Terrorism Investigation Division is also among yesterday's infections. As per the police, 199 officers serving at various police stations located in the Western Province are infected with the virus. That brings the total of COVID-19 infected police officers to 358. Elsewhere, a person who received treatment at the Homagama Base Hospital has contracted the coronavirus, which led to the temporary closure of the ward he was treated at. In Megoda, with a doctor serving at the Ayurveda hospital testing COVID-19 positive, the hospital was temporarily closed until Monday the 9th. The origin of his infection is yet to be ascertained. In another development, 15 people at the Ruanvalla MOH division who were placed under quarantine have tested positive for COVID-19. All of them are identified as associates of the Paliagoda cluster, and among them are 4 members of the same family. Also among the new infections are 16 associates of the Paliagoda cluster from the Hamwella MOH division. In Horana, 14 more employees of the Gurugoda apparel factory tested positive for the virus. All of them are now under quarantine. Also in Horana, 3 women who were quarantined in the area of Valmilla in Gonapula were infected with the virus. All of them are associates of the Paliagoda cluster, and among them is a 90-year-old woman. In the meantime, 6 persons infected with the coronavirus were found from Veragama in Vaduva yesterday, and they are also linked to the Paliagoda cluster. They too were quarantined. Meanwhile, in Tambaravila, 4 persons at a factory which employs 165 people were infected with COVID-19. Their diagnosis led to 161 of their co-workers being quarantined. On another development, a COVID-19 infected mother gave birth to a healthy baby today at the Colombo East Base Hospital. A team of about 20 persons assisted the procedure since surgeons' movements were limited owing to being clad in personal protective equipment. To date, the total number of coronavirus infections in the country stands at 12,783. 7,186 of them have fully recovered and 5,563 cases still remain active. What's more, a further 23 inmates of the Valikada prison tested positive for COVID-19 today. 22 of them are women.
The use of rapid antigen COVID-19 tests could begin in the country as early as next week. Chief Epidemiologist Dr. Sudat Samaravira says that a team of medical experts have been appointed to review the WHO recommended testing kits, with review reports expected by the end of this week. The government on Wednesday imported 200,000 rapid antigen test kits from South Korea that provides a result in just 20 minutes.
The WHO has recommended antigen-based rapid diagnostic test also to identify COVID-19 cases in addition to the PCR testing. At the moment, we are validating in our country to see whether this is a suitable test for us. If it is suitable, which population groups that we can apply this test and identify the cases. And also an expert team is now reviewing the usage criteria for this test. And we hope that these reports will be available by the end of this week. We hope that we will be able to utilize this test very soon in our country. Still, this disease is controllable if the people are giving us the assistance, staying at their home without coming into the society. We hope that we can control this COVID-19 very effectively.
Now, the central bank, meanwhile, has decided to extend the grace period applicable for the loans registered under Saubhagya COVID-19 Renaissance facility by 3 more months. The central bank implemented loan scheme facility in 3 phases to provide working capital loans at the rate of 4% per annum. It has a repayment period of 24 months, including a grace period of 6 months, in order to revamp the businesses affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. But with the onset of the second wave of the coronavirus, most of the borrowers have experienced difficulties in revamping their businesses as expected. With the extension of the grace period applicable for the loans by 3 additional months, the beneficiaries of these working capital schemes who wish to receive a grace period of 9 months are required to send a written request to the relevant bank. We will see you once more on the other side of this break. Bear with us.
Ceylon Bank, the bank with a heart.
Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. Now, a grace period is declared for people to pay traffic fines since post offices in some parts of the country are closed owing to the prevailing virus outbreak. The pandemic situation, however, was not a deterrent in holding the GCE Advanced Level Examination, as it came to a successful conclusion today. The Commissioner General of Examination says that measures will be taken to mark the answer scripts in line with stipulated health and safety protocols. The Advanced Level Examination got underway on the 12th of last month.
The GCE Advanced Level Examination, which commenced on the 12th of October amidst the rise in COVID-19 infections, successfully concluded today. As such, Commissioner General of Examination Sanat Pujdha said that the GCE Advanced Level Examination papers will be marked under the stipulated health and safety protocols.
පිළිතුරුපත් ඇගීමේ කටයුතු පිළිබඳව අපි යම්කිසි තීරණයක් ගත යුතු වන්නේ සෞඛ්‍ය අමාත්‍යාංශයේ නිලධාරීන්ගේ උපදෙස් පරිදි. ඒ අනුව අපි කල්පනා කරනවා තව සති දෙකකින් පස්සේ ඒ පිළිබඳව අවශ්‍ය තීරණ ගන්න. කෙසේ වෙතත් ලකුණු දීමේ පටිපාටි සකස් කිරීම, ඒ වගේම පිළිතුරුපත් පැකට්ටු නැවත පැනල් කිරීම වැනි සියලු රාජකාරී මේ දිනවලද සිදු කරමින් පවතිනවා. ඒ අනුව පිළිතුරුපත් ඇගීම සඳහා සියලු කටයුතු සූදානම්. ඒ අනුව පළමු වටයේ ප්‍රාදේශීය වශයෙන් පිළිතුරුපත් ඇගීමේ කටයුතු ආරම්භ කළා. අවසානයේදී බස්නාහිර පළාතේ පරිශෝකරුන් සම්බන්ධ කරගෙන ඉතිරි උත්තර පත්‍ර සියල්ල ලකුණු කිරීම සඳහා අවශ්‍ය ක්‍රියාමාර්ග ගැනීම තමයි අපේ සැලසුම වී තිබෙන්නේ.
Meanwhile, the vegetable prices at the Kapetipola Dedicated Economic Centre, which distributes produce from the upcountry nationwide, fell sharply due to the measures taken to temporarily close economic centres across the country. However, vendors say that the vegetable prices have returned to normal following the reopening of economic centres.
අද දින අපේ කැප්පිටල් ආර්ථික මධ්‍යස්ථානයේ ඉතා සාර්ථක වෙළඳපොළක් පවතිනවා. මොකද අද පිට පළාත්වල ආර්ථික මධ්‍යස්ථාන විවෘත කිරීම සමග වෙළඳුන් විශාල පිරිසක් පැමිණලා තිබෙනවා. සාමාන්‍ය මධ්‍යස්ථ මිලක අද පවතිනවා. ඊට පෙරේදට වැඩිය සාමාන්‍ය මිලක දැන් මේ වන විට පවතිනවා. බඩු ගොවියන් රැගෙනීමත් ප්‍රමාණය ඉක්මවා තිබෙනවා. ඒ වුණත් වෙළඳු සිටින නිසා උන්ට අද සාර්ථක වෙළඳපොළක් පවතී.
In the meantime, Director of the Sri Jayawardhanpura General Hospital, Dr. Ratnasiri Hevage expresses hope of increasing the hospital's daily number of PCR tests.
දවසකට PCR පරීක්ෂණ 300ක් වගේ ප්‍රමාණයක් කරලා දෙන්න හැකියාව තියෙනවා. දැනට තියෙන තත්ත්වයන් යටතේ මේ තත්ත්වය තවත් දියුණු කරන්න තමයි අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ. ඒ ප්‍රතිඵල පැය 24ක් ඇතුළත ලබා දෙන්න අපි උපරිම උත්සාහය දරනවා.
Elsewhere, the Polgahawela magistrate slapped a 5,000 rupee fine each on 30 persons who had failed to wear face masks at public spaces in the area. The magistrate also ordered 10 more persons to appear before the court over a similar offence at a future date. In another development, the isolation status has been lifted in the Bulat Kohupitiya police area and the Galigama Pradeshya Sabha area in the Kegol district and the Badugama Navajanapade in the Matugama divisional secretariat. Meanwhile, the secretary to the Ministry of Finance approved the granting of a grace period for those who could not pay traffic fines due to the recent outbreak of COVID-19 in the country. Postmaster Ranjit Aryaratna said that the grace period was granted since many people were unable to settle traffic fines as post offices were closed in several areas due to isolation status and quarantine curfew, as well as other practical reasons.
In news just in, the government says that the GCE ordinary level examination will be held from the 18th to the 28th of January next year. We'll see you shortly. Welcome back. This is First at 9. Now taking a look at the Colombo Bourse, Sri Lankan shares rose for a fourth straight session to end at their highest level since early January today. The all-share price index gained 75.98 points to end at 6,080.09 for the second consecutive day, while the S&P SL20 index of most liquid stocks gained 1.22%. Foreign investors were net sellers in the equity market, offloading 245.3 million Sri Lankan rupees. Now here's a brief report on today's market performance.
Today we saw another surge in the ASPI, with the ASPI gaining about 76 points during the day. It seems to be a major bull run that is in course. It's the fourth consecutive day that we are seeing a big green day, and we are seeing significant amount of retail activity in the market. Retailers are very active and are on a strong buying trend. So with the people getting used to the COVID-19 outlook and with the possibilities of lifting the curfew on Monday, there seems to be a high level of investor confidence at the moment. So with that, we are seeing strong interest in the market. In addition to that, we've seen over the last few days results being released, and some of the export oriented and manufacturing companies have shown very high growth in profitability levels, and this is also positively affecting the market.
Now, as countries across Europe head into further lockdowns, the United Kingdom too will be imposing a second national lockdown this week, with restrictions on social gatherings and residents required to work from home. Our UK correspondent Nalin Pereira has more on the developments from London.
Currently, there are over 9,000 patients in the hospitals with COVID-19 in England. On that current trajectory, the number could be doubled over the next 2 weeks. As the Prime Minister Boris Johnson has decided to impose a second national lockdown in England this week. This will result in asking people to stay at home and work from home, prevent gatherings with everyone you do not live with, including friends and family, and closure of most businesses and venues. The Chancellor Rishi Sunak has extended the furlough scheme, under which 80% of the salaries will be paid by the government. Although the job support schemes are there to support businesses, the ethnic Sri Lankan travel and tourism companies have suffered their worst performances in the living memory, resulting in large number of job losses among their staff. With regard to the Sri Lankan restaurants in London, they have reported a 40 to 70% drop in their revenue in the last few months due to the pandemic. With the Sri Lankan diaspora in the UK who are desperately waiting for their repatriation flights to the island, we believe that majority of the students who were stuck here have now travelled back. The remaining Sri Lankans have received an update from the Sri Lanka High Commission that as the borders are closed in Sri Lanka, there are no options at the moment, but they'll be informed in due course.
Meanwhile, in news from across Europe, parts of Denmark will face new tougher lockdown measures after health authorities discovered a mutated coronavirus strain in minks and in people in the north of the country. The government has said it would cull up to 17 million animals, which would cost the state more than $800 million to prevent human contagion with a mutated coronavirus, which authorities said could be more resistant against future vaccines for people. Meanwhile, the northern region of Lombardy around Milan went into lockdown today as part of new restrictive measures to combat COVID-19. Italy has been split into 3 tiers: red for high risk, orange for medium risk, and yellow for low risk zones. Lombardy, now a red zone, is once again the region hardest hit by the virus. A doctor at Liège's Citadel Hospital in Belgium yesterday expressed fear that the hospital's intensive care unit could run out of beds for COVID-19 patients by the end of the week. Due to the current near saturation, the hospital has already begun moving severely ill patients, many on ventilators, to neighbouring Germany. Meanwhile, in Spain, ICU staff at the Delma Hospital in Barcelona are prepared for a second wave of coronavirus, but fear they could face a shortage of staff. During the epidemic's first peak in March, when the virus spread unchecked through Spain's population, the hospital reached 4 times its capacity, with 80 patients admitted to its ICU, despite a capacity of 18.
And that's it from all of us here at First at 9. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.